will begin by discussing the concept of state-centered political theory, which emphasizes the role of the government over civil society. It argues that the state itself can structure political life to some extent, but does not facilitate the way in which power is distributed among classes and other groups at any given time. One begins to speak of an interventionist and thus bureaucratic state. Max Weber points out which best characterize the rational development of the modern state, a state that becomes an instrument of economic needs. This demand, already present during the First World War, became inescapable with the crisis of 1929 to 1933. It was then that G. M. Keynes published his General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, which proposed systematic state intervention in the economic mechanisms officially abandoning until then to the natural laws of the economy, with measures such as the reducing unemployment through a policy of investment and public works, combating inflation, and even controlling interest rates. This policy was imposed in very different regimes, like in Mussolini Italy, in Salazar Portugal, in the Nazi Germany, in Stalin Russia, in Roosevelt New Deal, and in the French Popular Front. From now on, the state will always and everywhere be statist.
And now, what does liberal internationalism mean? It is a doctrine of foreign policy that promotes two main ideas. First, that liberal international organizations should work to achieve multilateral agreements between states that uphold restriction norms and move ahead liberal democracy. And second, that liberal international organizations can intervene in other states to pursue, word for word, liberal goals and also tend to champion supranational political structure such as the European Union and international organizations like the United Nations. And where did it emerge? It was during the 19th century among policymakers and was developed in the second decade of the 20th century under US President Woodrow Wilson. The goal of liberal internationalism is to achieve global structure within the international system that are inclined to promote a liberal world order. Also, it envisioned a gradual transformation of world politics from anarchy to common institutions and the rule of law.
Statism is a doctrine, political or cultural, according to which the state must be the center and the main structure that directs, administers, and controls all or part of social or economic activity. Most of these countries are located on the continent of Africa, where property rights are continually violated, institutions plagued by endemic corruption, and a lack of citizen legal security due to armed conflicts. Some examples of statist countries are: the Democratic Republic of the Congo is mainly characterized by a weak judiciary that undermines the protection of property rights and fuels corruption. Its population lives trapped in subsistence poverty, that is, 65% of the population is rural and carries out family-sustained farming.
One example among liberal internationalists is former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. In the United States, the group in question is associated with the Democratic Party. Many neoconservative thinkers in the United States have begun to employ arguments similar to those of a typical liberal internationalist. In fact, as the two ideologies have become more similar, this shows that liberal internationalist thinking is spreading within the Republican Party. Others argued that the neoconservatives and liberal internationalism are the different foreign policy philosophies, as neoconservatives could only apply similar rhetoric to liberal internationalists, when in reality they have very different foreign policies, objectives, and methods of intervention.
Liberalism began as a theoretical alternative to realism, and in the field of international relations it has stood out some periods depending on how useful it is to explain the international context. Let's go with an example. An example of this could be the rise of the Gyros after the two world wars, in which they wanted to explore the possibilities of a peaceful international order. Along the same path, when a special moment of acceptance was experienced with the end of the Cold War, in the desired approach of what was called the New World Order and liberalism. I inherited psychological traditions from Erasmus, Luke, Penn, and others that focus on terms such as freedom, rationality, democracy, and human rights.
Liberalism creates key concepts that are part of IR, such as freedom, tolerance, individualism, democracy, promoting peaceful political relations through mutually beneficial business relationships. As Adam Smith says, nations can prosper without government regulation, allowing people to freely pursue their interest in a free market. IR theory of liberalism assumes that export of democracy as the main concept of foreign policy combined with market economy and substitution of political economic relations. That is why liberalism explains the international context of a specific moment in different historical events through the years, and the statins is not used to develop symbolic acts of international relations.
Liberal internationalism is a foreign policy doctrine that states that liberal states should intervene in other sovereign states in ways that pursue liberal objectives. Such intervention may include both military invasion and humanitarian aid. Internationalist liberalism promises to promote democracy and, together with other countries, to strengthen a rules-based international order. Instead of looking inward, it gave itself an active role in the West as a defender of human rights abroad. In conclusion, liberal internationalism, while promising democracy and strengthening international rules, believed that it can embrace as many countries as possible, but it would try to make sovereign states pursue the same liberal goal. But that would only be in one extreme. But it would also achieve the free flow of trade and investment, which is one of the points for which they clamor the most. And nationalist sentiment would be left aside. Without status internationalism, countries and people would be free to prosper without government regulation. Tariff and measures put in place to buy foreign products or sell products would disappear, and nationalist sentiment would be lost.